Okay, this is part 2 of a book review on this book right here called Solving the Multiple Sclerosis Mystery by Hal Huggins. Again, this is a masterpiece book. And he's a dentist who figured out that dental amalgams and root canals were increasing the risk of multiple sclerosis and a bunch of other diseases, including many autoimmune diseases, etc. This is a painting of St. George slaying the dragon. This is actually by Raphael in 1504. And, the standard theme here is the damsel in distress. And he jokingly called himself the slayer of dragons, Hal Huggins, because most of his multiple sclerosis patients were females, and he was slaying the dragon of amalgams and root canals, and he had that on his business card, the dragon slayer. Okay, this is the painting by the great Raphael. Well, here's another version. I like this version better of the painting because it kind of follows in a nice story form. Slaying the dragon, St. George, there's the damsel in distress thanking him. Rather beautiful. Noble masculinity working together with femininity. That's how the world should be. Everything goes better for everybody when those two things work together. Okay, now here is multiple sclerosis areas with highest prevalence. Multiple sclerosis is much more common in the Western world, which are colder climates, so people get less sunshine. These are areas where people eat more meat, so they're more prone to having a lack of dietary fiber, and nowadays they eat more processed food too. Lack of dietary fiber associated with leaky gut, associated with autoimmune disease, associated with multiple sclerosis. These are also the countries with more advanced science and technology, and they started placing dental amalgams. First amalgam was placed in about 1818. They became popular by about the 1830s, 1840s. First case of MS described in 1868 by Charcot, the French neurologist. And the thought of Huggins is that the reason why MS wasn't described before this time was because there weren't any amalgams. That's what he thinks. He thinks it's primarily an amalgam disease. I think it's primarily a dietary disease, but amalgams also cause it. There's more than one road to causing a lot of neurologic diseases. Their causation is multifactorial. But you look at this, extraordinarily high rates of multiple sclerosis in Germany, in the USA, in Canada. Okay, and there's more MS in northern United States than there is in southern United States where it's warmer. There's hardly any in the really warm places like South America and Africa. Okay, and he mentioned that Hal Huggins. He goes, you got 12 million Bantus in Africa, black people, and they don't have any multiple sclerosis. Okay, I've seen lots of black people in the USA with multiple sclerosis. It's common. And by the way, I've seen thousands of cases of MS. Okay. Because one of the things I do is I'm a neuroradiologist. That's one of my fields, and I see a lot of MS on a routine basis. Okay, here's a nice article showing that when you sweat, you will excrete mercury in your sweat and also these other heavy metals. So the good news is your sweat glands are like little kidneys, and they pump out toxins. So you really want to sweat a lot. I'll routinely wear a t-shirt and a sweatshirt under my regular shirt, because it makes me sweat. I like that. I like to be warm. Sometimes I have to work in an air-conditioned room and it makes me cold. Okay. And maybe it makes me look a little more buff too. No, I just like it because I like to be warm. Actually, when I drive my car, when I have to drive home from work, I crank the heat up on full blast, even if it's 85 degrees outside, because I want to sweat. It's like a quick sauna, because I want to excrete all these toxins. Because again, the goal is you'll never get all the mercury out of your body. You'll never get some of these other toxins out of your body. But you just want to be excreting more every day than you're taking in. And then you'll probably be much more able to maintain your current level of health a prolonged amount of time. Okay. So that's one, your sweat glands are like little kidneys. That's a big thing to know. You want to sweat. Okay, here's a paper about head trauma. Patients with more head trauma, they've got a lot more multiple sclerosis. So you want to avoid head trauma. And if you already have a neurologic problem, then you definitely want to be extra careful to avoid head trauma. You basically want to avoid anything that's going to make it worse. So a head trauma, there's a lot of head trauma patients. I've seen tons of head trauma patients. These patients should be told no mercury amalgams. These patients should be told eat more dietary fiber, because the same fiber that maintains the gut barrier also maintains the blood-brain barrier. These patients should be told no dental amalgams, no root canal procedures. They should avoid all medicines that are mitochondria inhibitors, which is a lot of medicines. Okay? This is valuable stuff to know. It could be the difference between them recovering and being able to do lots of things they want to do versus them being disabled and kind of sad and disappointed. So trust me, this is another academic orgasm. Head trauma increases risk of multiple sclerosis. Okay. You want to know all these things because you want to help these patients get better. And in order to get better, you got to know what makes you worse, and you got to stop doing all those things. And you also have to realize how much danger you really are, so you take it seriously and get your act together real fast. Because I talk to a lot of people, and they just don't get it. They're fat, they're sick, they got all these medical problems, and I tell them, you really should eat a low-fat vegan diet. They look at me like, are you crazy? That's so extreme. And I'm like, look, you're overweight, you're hypertensive, you're diabetic, you have arthritis, you have all these other medical problems, you are sick, you are at high risk to die. Do you want to get better or not? Okay? You can go talk to some other, low IQ doctor who's going to put you on 20 different pills, or you can do the thing that gives you the best chance of getting better. It's your pick. I'm constantly amazed at how many patients are just clueless about what it takes to get better, and they're not even willing to try anything. And I'm like, well, have fun getting drugged and chopped up. I guarantee you, I know tons of little young baby doctors, they can't wait to get their hands on another operation patient. They'll love to chop you up. Okay, here is pickling and sea salt. The reason he brings this up is a lot of salts will contain additives, aluminum, and there can even be mercury contaminants in them. And he makes a point, if you're going to use a salt, he says, get one of these pickling salts where there's nothing in there at all except sodium chloride. And you see here it says no anti-caking agents, no additives, okay, for what that's worth. Okay, here's another patient on multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is an immune attack on astrocytes related to iron and water homeostasis. Okay, so the point of this one is it was saying that the primary injury, according to this paper, is not demyelination. That's relevant because multiple sclerosis books will tell you the primary injury is demyelination. And so he says, we argue that the immune attack on the water homeostasis machinery of the astrocytes and feet, which are related to the blood-brain barrier, rather than directly on myelin, rather than demyelination, is the primary event in multiple sclerosis. And we believe that myelin damage is a secondary consequence. That means the damage to the oligodendrocyte, fatty layer insulation, electrical coating on the neuron axons is a consequence of the astrocyte dysfunction, meaning a consequence of blood-brain barrier damage, because the astrocyte end feet, along with the endothelial cells, make up the blood-brain barrier. So that is relevant because it goes with the idea that amalgams and root canal toxins from anaerobic bacteria toxins traveling retrograde through the veins and through the nerves could be the mechanism, especially through the veins, because you get perivenous inflammation of the nerves, especially in the brain, next to the ventricle. So it's perivenous, periventricular inflammation causing brain damage. All right. So the reason I'm showing you this paper is it correlates with the amalgam theory. Other things that correlate with the amalgam root canal theory is more lesions on the same side of the brain as the amalgams. Ingalls was a dentist who had MS, and he showed that. Okay. A temporal correlation of getting MS within days, weeks, months to years after amalgams. There's a high incidence. People with amalgams have more of these MS disease, okay? And then getting better after amalgams are removed. There's a bunch of things that go with it. And the fact that it's perivenous inflammation after it's spread retrograde up through the veins being the primary lesion rather than primarily demyelination. Now, don't get me wrong. There's more than one way to cause MS. And again, I think autoantibody cross-reactivity due to leaky gut is the most common mechanism as proposed by Roy Swank, the MD PhD from Harvard, friend of Dr. McDougall, okay, because he had 34-year follow-up, put patients on a low saturated fat diet, and 95% had intact activities of daily living, ADLs, at about 34 years of follow-up. That's extraordinary, okay? But if you're not getting better, I would do both. I would do both anyways, but I'm letting you know how this works, so you got a chance to get better. Okay, now here's another paper showing you the first colored South African with multiple sclerosis confirmed at autopsy. This paper was written in 1979. I tell you, in the United States, I see tons of black patients with multiple sclerosis, tons of black patients with lupus, autoimmune disease. Okay, so why was it that in South Africa they don't have a single case until 1979? Because they used to eat a plant-based diet. Okay, the clinical details and neuropathological findings of a colored South African with multiple sclerosis are presented. This case is the fact that this is the first proven case of multiple sclerosis in a colored South African. Okay? Like Hal Huggins was saying, 12 billion Bantus and not a single case of the multiple sclerosis. Okay? You would have had numerous cases in a Western country. So this is showing you. Why? Number one, they are eating a better diet, low-fat, plant-based diet. Number two, they're not putting in amalgams, okay, at that time. I don't know exactly when they started putting amalgams in there, so I don't know the exact history of that, but I'm still making a point. This is pretty interesting. And it kind of reminds me like of hypertension. You know, C.P. Donaldson in the Lancet Journal, 1929. Blood pressure in the African native, 1,800 consecutive adult male admissions to a hospital, checked their blood pressure, and the incidence of hypertension in Kenya, eating a plant-based diet, was zero, none, zero. So it's not genetic, okay? What that means is it's something due to the environment, okay? And they were eating a plant-based diet. In the Western world, if you took 1,800 consecutive black adult admissions and checked their blood pressure in the USA, probably 80% would be hypertensive. So, rather interesting. Okay, here's a worldwide distribution of MS. As a matter of fact, I think we'll stop right here, and we'll get into this in the next lecture. So this is the end of part 2 of multiple sclerosis from the book review of Solving the MS Mystery, from the book by Hal Huggins, the great dentist.